Neglected to introduce myself while I was doing all this stuff with the laptop and all that. So I'm Kim Hunt. I'm the Executive Director of Pride Action Tank, and we are a project incubator and think tank focused on action that leads to improved opportunities and outcomes for LGBTQ people. And we know that by looking through an LGBTQ lens, we're also helping many folks who are vulnerable populations for whatever the issue may be. It's very important to us to make sure that we are getting input from community and getting a deeper understanding of issues that we focus on. And one of the ways that we do that is through convenings like the Out Aging Summit. And it's very important to us also to make sure that folks who are most impacted by whatever issue we're looking at are at the table from the very beginning. So as Britta mentioned, we did have older adults, LGBTQ older adults on the panel. I'm kind of one of those older adults myself at this point, so I can't say they anymore. Me too. So what we're going to do today, let me see if I get this right. So you saw Don, and you're about to see him again. How that happened, I know. I don't know why his picture was the one that came up on that video from YouTube, but because as you saw, there were many other people on the video. So for today, what we want to do is, I know there are some folks in the room that weren't actually at the summit, so we do want to talk a little bit about what it was and how it was structured. Britta talked about this a bit. And then we want to delve into what we heard. So I'll quickly go through some takeaways. And then we want to spend the bulk of our time kind of looking at 3 buckets, and we'll go through what those buckets are. And it's just a way of organizing the information that we received. And we want to talk about it a little more at these community meetings. We want to share it, but we know this isn't the end of the input. We want to also delve a little deeper. And then eventually what we want to do is action some of the things that come out of the summit. And what we have typically done, and I'm going to put typically in quotation marks because Pride Action Tank is less than 2 years old. So, so we're still kind of making this up as we go. But we often have ongoing committees that kind of shepherd the work that comes out of the summits or convenings. So there will be an invitation at the end of this for those who want to stay engaged in some way. But before we go there, I would like for my partner in crime, Don Bell, to pop up and just, and probably partners in crime, so many of you folks know. And actually, let me pause on that too, before Don comes. Since we have an intimate group, and we were expecting an intimate group, because conversation is better, and it's summer. Can we just go around the room and just say your name, your pronouns, your preferred gender pronouns, and if you're affiliated with an organization and you want to share that, that's fine. If you don't want to share it, that's fine too. And I also want to make folks aware that Jean is videotaping what's happening here so that we can share it with others who weren't able to come. So why don't we start with you, Jean?
Jean Albright, she, her, member of the planning committee in Windy City Times.
Terry Warman, again, AARP, she, hers, her. And age 61 in case we want to throw the age thing.
Oh, yeah. We can do that. I'm 55. Yep.
Bill Kane, I guess EM. I have been a volunteer here at the Center on Halsted. I've worked with Britta in the past and now I'm involved in some other activities in the community. I was just 72 a couple weeks ago.
Nice. Happy birthday.
John D'Amelio. I'm on the board of the Safe Schools Alliance and on the advisory council of Pride Action Tank and retired from teaching at UIC. He is him, and I'm 68.
Lisa Gilmore, she, her, or they, them, principal and founder of Illinois Accountability Initiative, and on the advisory council of Pride Action Tank.
time is coming.
Britta, she, hers, I'm 37.
Becky Munzer, Track Social Service, 70 this year.
Yeah.
And Treater, Tracy Baby Treater, 54, and Friday Action Tank, 56. Nikki, number 10, and Texas Hit, 96, and she, her.
Pop in the back.
Kelly Rice, I went Howard Brown Hill, I used Buckman Cornell, and Lucky 39.
Humor Off Speech, she, her, around 23, and then intern at the Center of Health Services. Joanna Thompson, community outreach coordinator here at Center of Hempstead, she, her, 29.
Hi, I'm Christine McClinton. I'm 63 years old and I'm in the CSAP program, and I volunteered over the years at Seminole Halsted, and it's a great place to be.
Larry Wolf, he, him, his, I guess the right affiliation would be Kabbalah Meditation Center, but mostly here is myself at 66.
Matt Simonet, age 46, he, him, with Wendy's 3 times.
The gentleman there from this kingdom?
Can you introduce yourself, name, pronoun, age, and what organization you're from?
Tom Hunter, he, him pronouns, I'm age 59, we're in Chicago.
And I'm Don Bell, he, him, his. I am 67, but only for a few more days. On August the 9th, I'll be 68.
And he loves life.
You know, or as my grandkids say, 67 and a half.
And another FYI, we do have a photographer in the back who didn't introduce himself or give his age.
Let's get him in here.
29. So if anyone does not want their picture taken, please wave him off and wave Tracy off and wave me off, because I tend to snap away too. And if you're in case you're interested, the average age on the first day of the summit, which was focused on older adults, was 62 and a half. And the average age on the service provider day was 47. Okay, Don. Now you can come up.
If I can get up. Oh, goodness. Oh, yeah, I need this, right?
Yes, you do.
Terry said you should always have the mic.
Always.
Yes, ma'am. I have learned to do what Terry says.
That's right.
Absolutely, without question. So it's been a learning experience. Anyway, my name is Don Bell, and I want to say, first of all, welcome to the members of the out-aging community, my colleagues and my contemporaries, and to our new allies, our continuing allies, who are providers for the services for this community. This Out-Aging Summit has been a labor of love, and I'd like to focus on love because we focused on labor already. No, it's been wonderful working with everyone, and I really appreciate the concern, the respect, and the efforts of really hearing the experiences of the community in working with these issues. And why is it important? It's important because it's about life, literally. Members of our community, of people who are my generation and older, have survived all of the social justice movements since the middle of the 20th century. We are veterans of each of those, including the LGBT movements. And as such, we are moving on to new stages of life. Baby boomers like me have had the experience of changing every generation through which they've gone, and we will be changing this generation too. One of the first things we'll be fighting is the silencing and the efforts to erase our existence and our experience that comes normally in an ageist society, but particularly in a political environment such as one that we're going through now. One of our main problems in terms of our health and our existence is that we too are suffering the same social malaise that many communities are suffering because of our current political climate. And it affects us directly, and it means life and death to many of us. Now, those of us who live here in this area, who are at the center, who are at Town Hall, who have direct service from Howard Brown, who read Windy City Times, who spend time at Gerber Hart, and other LGBT institutions, we're the lucky folk. But we don't just exist here as a community. We exist across Chicago, the metropolitan area, we're in the suburbs, but most importantly, we're also in ex-urban areas, we're in rural areas, we're in small towns, we're on old family farms, and many of us are experiencing the isolation and the effects of that it causes. So when policy changes that include issues of housing and health care come along, they literally cost us lives. One of the things that people won't spend much time talking about now that we've gotten a budget after 3 years is the number of people who've been lost because their Meals on Wheels were taken and cut away. For many people in the aging community and in the LGBT aging community, they literally had only the social contact of the Meals on Wheels deliverer or the U.S. Postal Service. That's all they saw. And when you cut that back from 3 times a week to once a week, the effect is significant. You know, they won't tell us how many people have suffered from that emotionally. And they won't tell us how many people have literally died because of it. But the number is significant. So this isn't a philosophical or political foray into some obscure project. This is about human life and expanding the definition of human to include more and more different kinds of people. And so every moment that you've put into this effort, whether it's coming and joining us today to talk about it, or if you've worked from the very ground floor in planning it, what you've done, the commitment that you've made is very important. And on behalf of myself, as an older LGBT person, and as a human being, I say thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Tom. So let's jump in. As we mentioned, the summit was 2 days. We actually had an opening ceremony at Affinity Community Services on the south side, which is where the second and final community report back will be next Monday. Our goals were to create a platform that centered the voices and experiences of LGBTQ older adults and the issues they face, such as gaps in services and resources and opportunities. We wanted to provide a diverse and inclusive forum for redefining aging and care, and I think that was a key theme for folks around the table. We didn't want to talk about things the way that we've talked about them before. And then we wanted to develop an agenda for advocacy, resources, and inclusion with and for LGBTQ older adults. Always have to thank our sponsors. So Lambda Legal was our lead sponsor. Our host sponsors were AARP and Affinity. Windy City Times was our media sponsor, and then AIDS Foundation of Chicago, Chicago Foundation for Women, Renewal Care, and SAGE were also extremely important to making sure that we were able to have a free day for the older adults and a severely discounted fee, or registration fee for the second day. And as Britta mentioned, we had tons of community partners to help push this information out. A real range of folks involved, even Belmont Theater District, because they understand older adults are a part of the fabric of life here in Chicago, and so we're very grateful to our partners. And of course we had wonderful planning committee that worked for about 9 months, so it really was labor. We birthed the baby.
And I didn't know nothing about that.
So on the committee was Jean Albright, Gloria Allen, Don, Jackie Boy, Britta, Lynn Hull, Jesus Ramirez Valier from UIC, Cynthia Tucker from the AIDS Foundation, Terry, who you met earlier, and Serena Worthington from SAGE. We also had quite a few volunteers to help us out. We had volunteers, volunteer facilitators, and note takers in our brainstorming sessions, and some amazing volunteers at the registration desk. And the team was rounded out by Jackie and me at the Pride Action Team. We are the staff of the Pride Action Team, by the way. So there were several key takeaways from the notes, and I should back up just a little bit. Last Friday, members of the planning team went through all of the notes from the 6 sessions, 3 issue areas, and kind of synthesized them so we could report back to the community. So, and I wanted to also include some quotes from the session. So one person said, there are 2 extremes. Seniors have all the same needs, but then LGBT seniors have some really unique needs. We aren't all the same. And I think Don mentioned that in the video as well. So one of the takeaways is that LGBT older adults want a range of housing options, including LGBTQ specific housing like town hall, and there was a lot of discussion about having resources that allow them to age in place. Another takeaway was that LGBTQ older adults want to be strong advocates for themselves in various service provider type relationships, but also through other advocacy engagement, like with elected officials and others. There's a lot of discussion about that. Older adults want service providers and the general public to stop making assumptions about who they are. They can speak for themselves. They're sexually active. Some folks are technology proficient. There are assumptions that are made about family status, gender identity, and sexual orientation. And LGBTQ older adults are just saying, stop with the assumptions and talk to me as a human being. LGBTQ older adults also want to stay connected to younger people through intergenerational programming, services, and friendships. They want to be visible. I think Britta mentioned earlier, we have a very youth-focused community, and older adults talked a lot about feeling erased and invisible in this community more broadly. Despite the digital divide, there are opportunities to use technology as a tool for community building and staying connected, as well as service provision for LGBTQ older adults. There was a lot of discussion about faith communities as an underutilized resource for those who feel safe in that kind of environment. There were a number of comments about being able to make community connections there, and also having opportunities to receive services at churches, as long as there's not a commitment to be a part of that faith. LGBTQ older adults and service providers stress the need a lot for navigators to guide people through complex systems like Medicaid, private insurance, housing programs, legal and medical documents, and a whole host of other benefits and entitlements, in part because they just don't know what is available to them and because of the complexity. And to the extent possible, older adults really do want a one-stop shopping option where they can get all of that paperwork done and all of those services, whether that's a digital option or in person. It actually should be both, because there is a lot to be said about in-person interaction from the staying connected point of view, but also just because these systems are so complex. So those were some big takeaways from the days. And what we want to do now is have more of an interactive discussion about some of the specific concerns and issues that folks shared with us, and also some of the potential solutions and programs or whatever they may be, but also give you a chance to weigh in on some of this information and offer some additional guidance or thoughts about what could be. And I'm going to hand you a form in a minute, and we're going to talk about it as a group. So we're going to break this into 3 major themes. And those themes that the notes seem to fall neatly into were this general lack of knowledge about or access to resources, the desire for social supports and community building, and also needed improvements to institutions and structures. So some of my planning committee members are going to help through this part of the discussion, and I'm going to put this down for just a second so that I can pass out a form for folks. And Jackie, do we have pens? We have a couple pens. So let us know if you need an ink pen. There they are. Also, for this part, we also have some large print of some of the content. So don't be ashamed. I need large print myself. So if you need it, let me know. Does anybody else need large print?